kind of like could be kind of serious. It could be not serious. We'll see what happens. But our regular viewer and commenter Love Crumb says, if you feel like sharing, what's an emotional memory you have that relates to Zelda in some way? And I think I've actually kind of shared like a handful like over the years on here. So like I don't know where they would be, what videos they would be in, but I've talked about various like accidents I've been in life that then in my time off I just played a crap ton of Zelda. So like I have a lot of good moments, like like almost positive emotional memories, even though they came after like some type of injury or something like that. But then I actually did this podcast for the Fun and Games podcast. This is like this gaming podcast, and I'm just gonna plug it, and you can go listen to that. But I did this episode on the original Legend of Zelda, and basically I sort of talked about my journey with that game and how like I got into the Zelda series via my grandpa, and like kind of how, I mean, that's a big reason to why I was into it so much, because he would kind of you know, he was like kind of pushing it on me even when I was a kid. Like he was super into it. So just in general, like that's why the series is so important to me. But if you want to hear like the full story on that, go check out that podcast, because it was like I told like a whole like 15-minute long story. But how about all you? Like what do you think?
I have one kind of similar to you, Gu, except it's sort of like the opposite direction. Like, I grew up playing Zelda since, I mean, I played Link to the Past, but like Majora's Mask was the first one. Like, that's about when I started playing, right? Like 2000, 2001. And so I grew up loving Zelda my whole life. And my dad also played video games. I would like sit on the corner of my parents' bed and watch him play Diablo or Age of Empires 2 and stuff like that. And my mom would always come in and be like, Ken, why are you letting our son watch that video game? You know, but he would always
Age of Empires too.
Mostly Diablo.
Specifically that one.
Don't let him learn about the Mongol Empire.
I learned nothing about the Mongol Empire, I promise you. But you know, that's like my dad and I, we never like were super close. Like even in adulthood, I mean, he's my dad, and that's like kind of all it's ever been. Like we've never been like super close father-son bond. But video games are like where a lot of our bonding have come from, and like we're both nerdy, so like that I got it from him. I got my love of Greek mythology from him. Like I learned like a lot of my nerd crap from him. And in high school, when Skyward Sword came out, I played it and I was like, whoa, this game is so cool. Dad, like, don't you love Zelda? Isn't Zelda awesome? And he just goes, I've never played Zelda before. And I just remember being like completely baffled. Like, wait, you've never played Zelda before? I'm like, Dad, you were playing video games in the 80s and you've never played Zelda? And he's like, I tried to help you in like Ocarina of Time when you were like 7 years old, but I've never like played a Zelda game. And I'm like, that is so wild to me. And so we eventually like, I got him to sit down and I'm like, Dad, I know you don't like the Wii because of the stupid motion controls. And this game especially is not going to be nice to you with the motion controls, but you've got to play it. Just try it. Just try it out. Right. And so he played a little bit with me there. And like I sat on the couch watching him play like I used to when I'd watch him play Age of Empires or Diablo. And it was like, wow, my dad's playing Zelda. This is so cool. I could tell he was not really enjoying it. Right. Couple days we would do it. And I think I kind of thought he had just like stopped playing until one day he had been sick and home from work. And, I'd gone to bed at this point already. And I heard someone in the living room. And I'm like, who's out in the living room? I guess, is that Dad? And I remember going out. It's like 2 a.m. He's sick. It's like a Wednesday at 2 a.m. and my dad is playing Skyward Sword in the living room, and he's like having fun. And I remember coming out in my pajamas and being like, "Are you playing Zelda?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm trying to beat this boss." And he was fighting Tentalus. What was it called?
Tentalis?
Tentalis.
There's a Tentalis.
Tentacle.
Tentalis.
I would call it whatever.
Tentalis.
And so I got to watch him over and over try and beat this boss, and he did it, and it was like so exciting. And he was like, "Wow, that sand ship was pretty cool." And he played through this whole game, and by the end of it, a couple days later, I remember him just going like, "Wow, Zelda's really cool." And I'm like, "Yeah," and that was Skyward Sword. Like, it's not the best Zelda. It's cool. It's really good, but it's not the best Zelda game, I promise you. And he was like, "Okay." And so since then, he's played like, I think 6 or 7 Zelda games.
That's so cool. Wow.
He's playing. I know
really cool.
He got a Switch. He played Breath of the Wild. He's probably still playing Tears of the Kingdom, if I'm being honest, because he's a little behind usually. But so like, I got my dad into Zelda, and it was like a way that him and I got to bond a little bit. So it was like, so he gave me being a nerd, I gave him Zelda, and that was our little bond. But that night when I like got up and watched him beat Tentalus, was, I don't know, that's like a nice little memory I have of
that's
like,
so sweet,
of high school. I don't know.
That is very sweet. That is nice.
Corey, what about you?
I don't know. I'm trying to I'm thinking of a lot of like impactful memories, but not like, I don't know, specifically emotional ones. The only one that really comes to mind, like generally, I would say Zelda has just been there for me in poopy times. Just when you're feeling down, you need to escape, just play some Zelda, and that's an excellent way for me to like not worry about life's problems or like how I'm feeling or whatever. And the one that's popping into my head is also, I was in high school, my senior year of high school. I basically, like, we were playing basketball in gym class, and I got kneed in the chest, and no bones were broken, but it partially collapsed my lung like 25%. So I had to go to the hospital, and I ended up being in the hospital for a total of 10 days. And it really sucked because when I first went into the hospital, they were like, "Oh, we're just going to monitor you overnight. You're going to be going home tomorrow." And then they were like, "It's not going back, so maybe tomorrow." And then the next day, maybe tomorrow. And like, it sucked because I was just like in there and not really knowing why my lung wasn't reinflating. Because when you partially collapse a lung, usually it like basically reinflates itself naturally. That wasn't happening. So I ended up having to get like a chest tube and stuff. And eventually even after that, when they were depressurizing the chest cavity, they had to go in and do like a little microsurgery thing where like they basically glued my lung to the chest cavity wall and like manually put it back into place, kind of.
Interesting.
So like, basically I was in the hospital for a total of 10 days, and it really sucked, and it was a bummer because like I was just sitting there all day. And I remember my friends would come visit after school when they could. They would like drive up and hang out, and I was always super bummed when they had to leave because I was like, well, now I'm just laying in bed in the hospital, like not having a good time. But my mom brought me she was like, "Do you want me to bring anything for you?" And I was like, "Yeah, bring my 3DS." And I remember playing Ocarina of Time 3D in the hospital. And specifically, I think that was the first time I played Master Quest. And that probably actually made me even more mad and stressed. But it was a good job of distracting me from my current predicament. So that's probably the closest thing that I could think of, is playing Master Quest in the hospital.
Wow.
I was getting emotional hearing both your stories a little bit.
Yeah.
I played through all of Master Quest on the 3DS on a plane, which was like, I don't know, I'm never comfortable on a plane.
No.
Not, more comfortable than having a chest cavity issue. But
yeah, no, it sucked. It was in the side. I still have a scar. It was in like right there.
Oh,
Scar Club.
Yeah.
Scar, yeah, that's
Partially collapsed lung club.
yeah. I've got this. I've told the story about my scars on the back of my leg. Are from that's when I played Majora's Mask, getting bit by a dog.
Yeah.
Got in a car accident, so I played Twilight Princess.
Hey, I got car accident Wind Waker. There we go.
Okay, car accident Wind Waker. That's just a good phrase.
That's the medicine.
It is. Zelda's a great.
Honestly,
You
yeah,
get
when
in a
you're
car crash, all right, you need a little Zelda.
yeah, I mean insurance claims, a little pain reliever, and some Zelda.
Yeah.
Do you have anything specifically that you can think of?
I don't know, like specific story wise, but I don't know. I talked about this before in a video, but like I remember when I first started playing Breath of the Wild, I was going through a rough time, and you know, I wasn't really feeling like myself. But I remember started playing that, and that was like the point where I started feeling like myself again.
Oh, so it's like it's kind of like an escape again, like kind of like what Corey was saying.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's like
that.
Yeah. Well, that's. I'm glad that must. I mean, then that's one of your favorite games now too in the series. That makes sense.
Yeah, it's a good game.
I have one. I probably mentioned this somewhere, but I had a friend who, when I first moved out on my own, was like one of my. I made a handful of good friends, but this is like one of my good friends who I would always go over. It was a couple people who lived at one place, and I would always go over and hang out with all of them. And then I ended up moving in with them later, just because we were hanging out most of the time anyway. And this is just like became my best pal. I got a picture of her right here, and I'd always go over. I think it was the era of the Wii, so whatever. We'd have the Wii set up, and she just liked to bake. She was just like bake random stuff, and she'd just be like, play whatever game. You know, I just want to watch you all play video games. And so we'd hang out, play video games. She had an N64, so I remember playing a lot on her N64. And then 4 years ago at this point, she tragically passed away, like really young, like probably I don't remember how old she was, but probably around the same age that I am right now. And there was one of our old roommates and her sister was like, hey, if you want to come over like to her apartment. She was a bit of a hoarder, and like we went over, and she's like, you know, if there's anything here, I've got a lot of stuff to kind of clean up, like if there's anything here that's kind of personal to you, you know, feel free to take it. And so it was kind of a fun, it was obviously really sad, but it was kind of like fun, like trip down memory lane a little bit, and like she was just buy the most ridiculous stuff, you know, like we found like the jacket from Akira, and just like I'm like, what are you doing with this? But there's a couple things that I took. Well, I took a handful of things, but first thing I picked up, I found like one of those replica Ocarina of Time ocarinas, you know? And I was like, why would she buy this? Just because like she's not like us. Like Zelda isn't like, she's not a Zelda freak like us.
She's not like us freaks.
And so our old roommate that I was with, she was like, well, she probably bought it to give to you. And I was like, okay, so I'll take that. Oh. And then the other thing I took was she had a ton of different game consoles, but I took her N64 and like a handful of games or whatever. And she was like, yeah, she'd probably like this, for you to have that, which is what we actually play on for our Nintendo 64 podcast, is that.
That's awesome.
And then I have 3 more up here that I tell on the other podcast. For some reason, I go into more detail, but my grandpa had like 3 N64s. But anyway, I get the N64 of her set up, and I'm looking at the games, and there's a bunch I haven't played or anything yet, but I saw she had like the Ocarina of Time, and I was like, oh, I should pop this in, and I popped it in, and I probably hadn't played her N64 since like, I don't know, like 2012 would have been the last time. But I turned on the Ocarina of Time, and there was a completed GUI save file on there. So I was like, oh, this is like the the file we played together and watched. And so I still have that. I'm gonna try to maintain it, maintain that file and the N64 as long as I can. So
so nice.
I know, so it's
awesome.
it's a good memory. Yeah. Well, anyway,
Video games bring people together. I don't care what people say.
They do. It's true.
Yeah, Zelda can be like a great escape, like you've
we've all used it as an escape. Yeah.
But it can also just be like a good I don't know. Well, Nico, you mentioned in the previous video, it can not only be that, but it can sort of help you, like we were talking about how it sort of changed or helped influence your worldview and things like that. So it's not even just like there are certainly some Zelda games where it isn't just like, oh, I'm playing this to be in like an imaginary land. Like it actually made me like think and feel things. Like I think a lot of them you can say that. And then of course it can be like just like such a strong memory, it can carry all these memories with you throughout your life. So this is probably the number. I mean, especially as time goes on and we do this together and like with all our colleagues at Zelda Dungeon and stuff, like now a lot of stuff at Zelda Dungeon has formed new memories for me now that especially as
it's been a long time.
Oh, okay. Can I share one more? I just thought of another. Okay.
Please.
I've mentioned this on a lot of other things too, but I actually do think of this as a powerful moment. When I first moved out, where I moved, I coincidentally was living close to Massey's, and still do now, but actually in a different area. But anyway, so we started hanging out because he was like, "Hey, we live 20 minutes away. Why don't you?" In one time, he was like, "Hey, why don't you come over?" Some other people from Zelda Dungeon were visiting him, and I was like, cool. And I go over there, and he's got set up the Philips CDI with and Wand of Gamelon is on, and
you're in for a good time.
Well, so at this time, like that game was just there's such a mythology about it. You only ever it was not ever like something you ever thought you would play, really, like unless like you got an emulator or something. But even then, I don't think I had sought that out. So to like sit there and like hold the CDI controller in my hand and play Wand of Gamelon, it was on like it was like on a CRT TV at the time, because this was still where that was like kind of a transitional period, and it was, I don't know, that was kind of magical. You know what I mean? I felt like I was in like Willy Wonka, like, oh, I've never thought I would play Wand of Gamelon, and now I've played all of those games, and
I feel that.
I think we've all kind of gotten to go through that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I felt almost the same way when we played it at the marathon the first year that I went. Our just sitting on the couch passing the controller playing Faces of Evil.
It's so funny.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah,
I was gonna say, it's just funny how those games have become such like a exciting part of the marathon too. So many people look forward to it because they're so bad that they're fun as a group.
It's such
before it was just like haha funny bad meme Zelda game, but it's like, no, that's actually, I'm super excited to get to those games.
Yeah, no, they're a good time.
Wow. Memories, Zelda.
I'm familiar with a Zelda game that has some memories on it. two of them actually.
Oh.
Mhm. Oh.
Ho, 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 ho.